Hello, beautiful people of the world. I am in the car today, and that is my preferred filming spot, actually. If you haven't watched my vlogs, I always say how much I love filming in the car. So I thought, why not just film videos in the car, like, all the time? Like, it's not that hard. So I'm in my driveway right now, in the car, and this is actually a brand new car, and I've never been in it before. So this is my first time in it, and it is now filled with books. And I'm gonna show you what my filming setup looks like with these books, because it's literally funny and crazy. Sitting in the passenger seat, and the books are scattered about the middle center console and the driver's seat. I also sit in the passenger seat because it's easier because there's no steering wheel. So that's one thing. Yeah, I've never been in this car before, and I needed to film a YouTube video. And yesterday, I asked on my story, my Instagram story. If you don't follow me on Instagram, it's @RealAbielli. And I asked on my Instagram story, what kind of video should I do? Because it was literally 2 days before I had to post a video. So obviously there was no time for like a vlog or anything. Plus I just started my job, and I just have like a super busy schedule. So like a vlog just could not work for like today. So I was like, what do you guys want to see? And someone said I didn't screenshot it, and I feel really sad because last time I screenshotted it so I could shout them out. So if you were the person that suggested it, like, comment down below and I will give you your credit, but I did not screenshot it. Someone said, why don't you tell us your overrated books, or like rate overrated books? And so I took all of the popular Booktok books that I have read, and I decided that I would tell you if they're overrated or underrated or perfectly rated. And I don't think any of these are underrated because all of them have had their time in the sun. I'm just going to tell you which ones are overrated. I don't know if I said that right, but, you know, I'll edit it. It'll be fine. So, I have all the books scattered about, and I'm going to go through them one by one and tell you my opinions on them. First, we have Things We Never Got Over and Things We Hide from the Light. I have not read the third book in this series yet, but I do have it, and it's on my TBR. So, these books, they really intimidated me when I picked up this one because it's literally like a brick. Like, holding this, it's so thick, and it's like rectangular, so it literally is the shape and size of like a brick. So, I was really scared because I had just finished like a really bad book. And I'll go into that because it's in this pile. But I had just finished a really bad book, and I told my mom to pick this up for me at Walmart while she was out, because she was out and I was home, and I had just finished that book. And I was like, why don't we give this one a shot? And it really intimidated me because I didn't know it was this big when I bought it. And so I was scared that I was going to get put into a reading slump because this is so big. But Lucy Score's writing is so good. Like, it flows perfectly, and goes by really fast, even though it's a really long book. And so this ended up being, I put it as my top book of 2023, which I actually switched that to The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, but this would still be one of my top books for 2023, because I just remember really enjoying it, and I don't really know why. Like, I'd have to go back and reread it in order to know, but I just remember really enjoying it, and I annotated it a lot, and I loved the epilogue, and I think that this one is not overrated. I think this one's pretty good, pretty perfectly rated. It depends on your taste in books, but I do think that it's really good. Next, I have the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and along with this, I'm going to put the Six of Crows duology, but that is on my TBR because I plan on rereading that, so I didn't take it out, because if you've seen my TBR in the back of my vlogs, it's literally a pile that's perched precariously on my shelf. So I wasn't going to get them down, but I'll put them in along with this. So just saying, I'm going to go into Six of Crows first. Six of Crows is literally my all-time favorite book ever. So that is definitely not overrated at all. That's my all-time favorite book. I always refer to it as my all-time favorite book, even though, like, I've read so many books and I probably could say, like, a ton of different things as my favorite book. I always say that as my favorite book. For Shadow and Bone, I also don't think that these are overrated. This was kind of what got me into my YA book stage, because I had been in a reading slump from when I used to read in middle school, and I think that in 8th grade I picked these up, and I really loved them, and they were the first YA books I ever read, and I still love them to this day. I still reference them. I have a shirt for Shadow and Bone. I'm not wearing it right now. I'm wearing my Lumineers shirt, but I have a shirt for Shadow and Bone. I just loved it. I'd made it part of my personality. I love Ben Barnes. I love all the actors from the show, and I picked these up and they were really good, and I don't think that these are overrated. Next, I have Beach Read by Emily Henry, which I feel like is very popular on Booktok. At least it was, like, a while back. I don't know about now. But I picked this up because I loved the cover. Like, I had heard good things about it, but this cover and the way this book looks, for some reason, intrigued me. So I picked this up, and this was also in my top books of 2023. I really enjoyed this book also. I don't think that this one's overrated. I loved reading about authors. I talked about that in my other book video, all the books I read since I got on my book slump. I love reading about authors. It inspired me to write more, and I loved hearing their process, and I loved the characters, and I don't think this one's overrated. And segueing from that into the next one, I have People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, which was not rated as highly as Beach Read. It did not make it into my top books, but I still really enjoyed this book. There was nothing wrong with it. It just didn't, like, stick in my brain, and, like, it didn't grasp my heart the way that Beach Read did, but it was a 4 stars, and I don't think that this book is overrated. I read it during the summer. I have some really good memories reading this book. Again, a really nice cover. I love Emily Henry's covers. I said this in the last book video, that Emily Henry, even if you're not enjoying the book, which I did, I enjoyed her books very much, even if you're not enjoying the book, the cover and, like, the feel and the smell of the book, like, makes it a whole experience. Like, you enjoy it because of the way the book feels. Next, I have one that was very popular a while back, but has now kind of come back into popularity because the sequel just came out, and I've read both. If He Had Been With Me and If Only I Had Told Her by Laura Nolan, and this one has so many fingerprints on it because it's a matte cover, and I promise I'm not dirty, it just fingerprints really easily. And this, I literally had it on my TBR for like 6 months because I knew that it was a sad book, and I knew that people really enjoyed this book, and I didn't want to pick it up and not be in the zone to, like, feel all the emotions. I wanted to be able to feel everything so that I could enjoy it and have, like, the best experience reading it that I possibly could. So I just picked it up randomly after finally getting out of a book slump. So I was reading Breaking Dawn by Stephanie Meyer before picking this up, and that's a really big book, and if you go into my other book video, you can see that too, if you want to see. In comparison to Things We Never Got Over, which is the biggest book that I have in this car right now, that is like double that. So imagine 2 of those, like, side to side. It was like 800 pages long. So that put me in a book slump, and I finished half of it. I read half of it, and then I got into a book slump, and then I finished it later on. So then afterwards I picked up this, and it was just like the right time for me to pick up this, because literally after I read this, it was 3 days until the sequel came out. So I picked up the sequel, I've read both of them, and I don't want to say that these are overrated because I enjoyed them and I gave them 5 stars each, but I do want to say that these are overrated because I didn't cry. And I wanted to, and there were parts where I really was getting emotional over these books, but I didn't cry. And I also think that the idea could have been carried out better. Like, I love the idea. Like, the idea of it is perfect. Like, you know when you get that perfect idea for a book? Like, it was a good idea. I loved the idea. I just didn't really like the portrayal of that idea, which I still gave them 5 stars. So I don't want to say that they're overrated because I enjoyed them, but I do think that it's overrated as far as the emotion factor, and, like, this has been played up to seem like something so much more than it is, if that makes sense. Next we have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. And this book was it was an emotional roller coaster for me. Not as far as the book goes, but as far as my opinions for this book went. Because this was like the 3rd book I had read after getting out of my big reading slump. So at that point, I hadn't really read anything superb yet. Like, nothing amazing that I had to compare this to. So I read it, and when I finished it, so I had kind of like set myself into this mindset that because I had annotated this so much, it had to be like a high rating because I annotated it, so obviously I enjoyed it, right? No, because there's a difference between enjoying a book and annotating it and liking some quotes and annotating it, or liking the writing and annotating it. It doesn't necessarily mean the book is good. So when I finished this book, I gave it a 4 stars. And then I think like the day after I rated it a 4 stars, I changed it to a 3 stars because I had kind of sat on my opinion and decided that it was a 3 stars. But after sitting for so long, I have ultimately decided that it is a 2 stars because I just don't think I'm a Carly Fortune girly, because I read her other book, I'll get into that next, but I didn't enjoy either of them, and I think this book is overrated. It's very similar in plot to The Summer I Turned Pretty, and I noticed that as soon as I picked it up, because I read The Summer I Turned Pretty immediately before this, so it was very similar in plot, and I just loved The Summer I Turned Pretty so much that this couldn't like replicate that. It was basically a love triangle between 2 brothers in a summer house. This one was at a lake and not at the beach, I believe. And their mom is really sick and dies because she's really sick, and that like it was very a lot of parallels, and I have to say that this is overrated, and I'm sorry to my Carly Fortune girlies. So segueing from that book into the next book, I have Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune, which I also think is overrated, and I think it's just my problem. I just don't like Carly Fortune, and I feel like she's such a popular author right now that I should like her. Like, I don't understand why people like her books. But obviously everybody has different opinions, and I can't say much because I'm an author and I don't like to share opinions like that because I have to think about it from like an author's point of view and how I would want my books to be reviewed. But I just didn't enjoy them. And this one was my first 1-star book of last year. And it was really, this is the book I read before I got Things We Never Got Over. So this was the book I was reading in my house, really disappointed in, zoning out because I just could not pay attention to the plot. And that's when I texted my mom and I was like, can you get me this book? Because I just finished this book and I need like something that is perfect. Like something that will get me out of this negative feeling towards this book. And I think the reason I didn't like this book is because it was very adult. Like, not like in a bad way necessarily, but for me it was a bad way, because the other one at least we got to see into the perspective of their teenage years. This one we didn't. We saw into their early 20s and like their younger versions of themselves, but it was mostly just when they were adults, and I just didn't like it. It just felt so businessy. Like they were always talking about like business and like they're grown-ups, they have grown-up jobs, and I just didn't enjoy it. I don't know. Nothing about this. I remember like 1 part, maybe 2, and I don't remember enjoying this book at all. So that's my opinion about that. Overrated. And finally, I think we have our most overrated book ever. And it's not my lowest rated, because Meet Me at the Lake was the lowest rated. This was actually a 2 stars, because I do have to give it credit where it's worth, because it got me out of my reading slump. But there's a story about this, and it was very overrated, and it's been a debate, and it's very controversial. This book is very controversial. You either love it or hate it, and I just kind of neutrally disliked it. And not like, I liked the story, I just didn't like the writing, and I do think it was very overrated. It's Lightlark by Alex Astor, and this is probably like the most like overrated. I don't want to keep saying overrated. I'm thinking of a different word, but I can't bring it to my mouth. Like, I can't make it come out. It was very highly talked about. Like, people were hyping up this book so much. And it has a lot of tabs in it because I was learning how to use the tabs, so I kind of used them on everything. But Lightlark, this was the first book I read coming out of my reading slump, because I had heard a lot about it and I was intrigued, and I got it for my birthday, and so I read it. And at the time, I enjoyed it and I gave it a 4 stars, but it was obviously the first book I had read in a while, and I didn't really have anything to compare it to. So I enjoyed the storyline as far as, like, I think it was a good idea again. Like, it was a good idea, but Alex Astor made it seem like something that it wasn't. She said it was Hunger Games ACOTAR, or something like that. It was Hunger Games meets ACOTAR. I've never read ACOTAR, so I can't tell you if that is correct. And I've never read The Hunger Games, but I've watched The Hunger Games. And this isn't like The Hunger Games at all. It's more of like, I don't know, more of like The Challenge, or like, I don't know, one of those shows where you kind of, you vote people off and you do little challenges. That's more of like what this is, but in Fantasyland. And she used a lot of the same metaphors. She called the sun a yoki thing like 4 times, and she called like black things, like the sky or like anything that's black, she said it was like ink spilling. And I started to underline like every time she used the same metaphors twice, which I probably wouldn't care if it was like just twice, but it was like where she was repeating it like 4 or 5 times. So that kind of got on my nerves, and I do think this is very overrated. And you can read it if you are intrigued. I was gonna go meet Alex Astor when she came to Colorado just because I wanted to. I still appreciate her as an author. I still think this was a good book as far as like entertainment. It entertained me, and that's what a book's supposed to do. But it is overrated as far as the quality, the writing, everything like that. It's just very hyped up because she went viral on TikTok, so she's like the most followed social media author. So I think people just hyped this up because she's trending. And with that, it feels like I've had a very short video, but it's probably going to be longer than I think it is, so I'll have to edit this later. That is all the books I have to show you today. And it feels like I went over a lot of the same stuff I went in my last book video, because I went through all the books I had read since I got out of my book slump in that video, so go check that out if you're curious. But I went over a lot of the same things in this video, but I didn't find it very repetitive. I know that this was a requested video, so I'm hoping that this is what you were hoping for. And I know that some people are going to rather watch this video than the other video, because the other video was kind of long, on the longer side, and I always make my videos really long, and I need to make them some of them shorter, because I know some people don't like to sit through such a long video. So I hope that this got kind of straight to the point, and you found what you were looking for, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be back on Sunday with another video, and go read some books, and maybe not popular books. Maybe you find some books that you've never seen anywhere before. Maybe go read some of the books that I said weren't overrated. Some of the popular books that were perfectly rated, that are amazing, and I love them with my whole heart. And have an amazing day.